Welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast. In today's episode, we are going to answer questions that came from our social media. These are questions from you, the listener. So if you are ready, listen up and lean in as we elevate your mind. Hey, Zoom buddy.
I know. We're doing something different today.
Yeah, I said this. I want to talk about a few changes.
Okay.
So we are going to be posting Monday, Thursday, Saturday instead of Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So for those of you who have been following us Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that just gives us an opportunity, since our new recording time will be on Mondays, to give us more time, plus all the other background things. Also, we'll have some days where we're not going to be side by side, but as you can see, we have our own setup here in your office and my office.
Yes, we do. I probably need to update my office a little bit and organize my bookshelf, but that's okay.
It's a lot of books, bro.
And that's only half of them because you got two more shelves on the bottom there.
So mine's like this is my vision board. Got some degrees.
My life. Yeah. My other side has it's got some pictures and stuff, but nothing fancy.
Yeah, all good. The other thing we're going to do is, and I haven't really worked out the kinks of the name, but our episodes where it's just one of us, and we'll talk about something that's specific to, our specialty. For you, postnatal pelvic health. For me, more marriage and family relationships, things like that. And they'll just be here and there. You'll see. I was thinking of calling it a mastermind, but I don't know if I like that name. So when you're looking at the shows, you'll see when it's just one of us. So if you're like, I don't want to listen to that person, you can skip it.
Or if you do want to listen to that person, you can make sure to add it to your playlist.
I just think people love us together.
I know. We've got a funny dynamic.
We love us too. So yeah. Awesome. So on my social media page, Mindset of Matter Coaching, I've been posting on my stories, like, what body image or binge eating or emotional eating questions do you have? More specific around that. And today we are actually going to be answering those questions. This is new, so we most likely will have a better process, especially to have live callers, people calling in and us actually be able to talk to you, because, it's hard to answer questions without a lot of information, but we're going to give it a go this time and see how it goes. And then we'll think about a process so that every week on social media, on stories and on posts, we have a place where you can ask your questions.
Yeah.
Because we like questions. So yeah. So we're just going to get into it today with our first question. Amanda, go ahead.
So the first question is, why do some people have cellulite and others do not?
Yes.
This is a hot topic.
It really is. It really is. I have been my leanest self and still had cellulite.
That's when I read this, I'm like, I think everybody has cellulite. Some are no.
I mean, to some point, but you will see people, even people in larger bodies, not have cellulite at all. For me, it is a genetic thing, of course.
Yeah.
Like I said, even at my leanest, I still had cellulite. I have it in a certain area too. And no matter, it's on my right outer thigh.
Just the right?
Yes. In my progress photos, it's right there. It's a little dimple in my leg, a couple of them, sorry. And for me, it is genetics. The nice thing is it doesn't necessarily it doesn't change. It just is kind of always there. And I think that, that's a really important thing to note, is that genetics plays a big part in the fact if you have cellulite and how predominant it is versus when it's not. What is your experience with that?
I have cellulite as well, and that's going to be through genetics just because my legs are bigger. But I also tell clients okay, it could be hormonal, if our hormones are changing, and especially thinking of going through puberty, pregnancy, menopause, lifestyle. So sometimes you'll see it if people are more sedentary, they have less muscle mass. And then as you age, especially, you're going to have less elasticity in your body. So that's going to change how your skin tone is tightened,
Correct.
body fat percentage. So it could be like a number of things. And I think at some point, some person is going to probably fall in one of these categories.
Correct.
But like you
At
said, not
least
everybody's.
women.
Yeah, yeah, and
Well, you
not
don't see a lot of
everybody's
cellulite
gonna.
on men. Let's just be honest. I don't think that
No, I
that's.
would say unless they're probably more sedentary lifestyle, overweight.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think of a man that I've seen it on, but you're right. Now that I like think about it, I'm like, but I don't know if I'm really looking for cellulite on a man. So if it's that or they just don't really have it.
Right. Well, and hormones in general, the hormones that are often affected are like estrogen,
Yeah.
insulin,
Yeah.
as well as your thyroid hormone. So if you
Hmm.
have struggles with that, and we usually see changes like insulin resistance, obviously estrogen fluctuations and thyroid issues mainly in women, they can affect men, but it is usually something that women deal with. So with those specific hormones, that would be why obviously it would affect more women. And then we talked about this before, just aging in general, as you said, like the elasticity in your skin, that eventually is going to go. So it's going to cause a little bit more of that like ripple effect, if you will,
Hmm.
in the skin. The thing is, like you said, most people have cellulite. Even the gals on Instagram showing off their
Yeah.
short shorts.
Like that.
I can have cellulite in one picture and not in another picture just simply by lighting and posing. I can have it, I can obviously airbrush it away, but it's a part of your womanhood. And it's just a matter of, it's kind of like how your elbow sits,
Yeah.
like the little
Yeah.
skin. What did they call this?
The weenus.
Yeah, your weenus. How that lays, and we've got to stop vilifying
Yeah.
cellulite because it's
Well,
so
I think,
common.
yeah, like, or demonizing it and like, or you'll see like this cool scoping to get rid of cellulite. And it's like, okay, but if it's genetic, cool scoping is not going to get rid of it. And
Mhm.
then this always makes me think back to like the magazines, you know how it says like celebrities, they're just like us. They have
Right.
cellulite too. And it's like,
Right.
I
Well,
mean,
yeah,
that's
because they're
very, I
fucking
feel like
human.
very degrading and invasive of their personal life. But I mean, okay, so these people have essentially oodles of money, right? We'll just assume
Right.
so,
Hmm.
and they still have it. So you
Correct.
you would think if with cellulite having the connotation that it does, if these people aren't getting able to get rid of it, then we're probably going to struggle in the same ways.
Hmm. But that doesn't mean that you can't change the structure. I always think of my
No.
legs, the rest of this sounds so silly and a little, and it is aesthetics focused, but what I'm gonna do is make my legs so fucking like
Yes.
buff and like
Strong. Yes.
strong, with strong quads,
Cut.
strong hamstrings that people
Hmm.
are not even looking at cellulite. They're like, wow, I want
Her
your
legs.
legs.
Yes,
Right.
correct.
I have a
Same.
client who is 47 and her legs are amazing. She got some compliments and it was funny. She goes, yeah, or the woman said, oh, no. Okay. So the woman complimented her and
Okay.
she goes, is that weird for me to say? And the man goes, no, it'd be weird if I said it. And then he said, oh, is that from hours on the stair stepper? And she goes, nope, that's hours under the barbell. And I was like, yes.
That's better. Yeah.
Yeah. And her legs look awesome. So, it's a level of acceptance again, because everything we talked about other than lifestyle change. And for some of you, you're like, I already changed my lifestyle and it's still there. Then we have to consider genetics,
Hmm.
hormones, aging,
Hmm.
the things that unfortunately are somewhat in our control. But if you're doing all the things and it's still there, we just gotta love it. We gotta
Right.
love it. So that is, yeah, that's cellulite, baby.
Okay.
What do we
Ding,
got
ding, ding.
next?
Number
Ding ding.
two, is tracking food worth it if you're trying to get lean for the summer?
Ooh, well, I'm gonna say something real fucked up right now. If you're trying to get lean now,
Too late.
probably not gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's too late because if you're trying to get lean now, you're most likely doing it in a yo-yo diet way. But I know this particular person and I know that that's not what they want. For me, so in culture, we, especially this kind of, dichotomy and disconnect between the two sides, right? So you have
Two
extreme
sides.
dieting, you have the, grind,
Okay.
4 weeks to the beach side. And then you have on the other side, like anything diet culture is bad, tracking food is bad. It almost even demonize the word you use, eating healthy,
Uh-huh.
right? Where eating a fucking apple is bad, right?
Right.
However, we really live in the middle of that. And for me, tracking food, if you've never done it, is incredibly insightful. It's important for your body in general to know what foods I need, how much of certain nutrients I'm getting in, what are the portion sizes that I need, what does it look like, what do certain serving sizes look like,
Hmm.
right? I always think of peanut butter. People will be like, oh, this is a tablespoon, and they'll have
Right.
this like glob over the top, and they're actually doubling their serving size.
I go back
But
to our
it,
conversation of, I think it was our like cost of getting lean podcast
Mhm.
where we were talking about tortilla chips and like the size and portion of that, right?
Yes, 10 tortilla
Hmm.
chips. So the problem though is people have this negative thought about it. Now, for some people, tracking food, they're too obsessed. It's causing them anxiety. Absolutely not.
Right.
For the majority, if you can look at it as education, gaining knowledge, right, around what we're putting in our mouths, comparing it to something like your bank account, right?
Hmm.
I'm not going to just continually overdraw my account. I need to know what I'm putting in and what I'm taking out.
Right.
And being able to take that knowledge. And the one thing I tell my clients all the time is I want you to pay attention to the serving sizes so that eventually, when we're ready to pull away, we can. And because we know this amount is 3 ounces of chicken, this
Hmm.
is 4 ounces of rice, this is, like you and I can sit down and look at a plate and get it relatively, accurate in regards to what's on it. Would you agree?
Yes.
For the question of getting lean, I think, and we've talked about this, I believe that it's the easiest way to get there.
Tracking.
Correct.
Okay.
When we don't track, we're guesstimating and we can be very inaccurate in our guesstimations. That's my thought. What are yours?
I think so. When I read this question, is tracking food worth it if you're trying to get lean for the summer? So let's take out where we are in the summer right now. I would say if that's your goal is to get lean for the summer, then yes, tracking is worth it
Mhm.
because I think it cuts out the noise of is this enough? Is this not enough? Is this actually 4 ounces? Is this not 4 ounces? If you're not used to looking, like you said, at the portion sizes and when you are tracking and then equating it to when you're not tracking.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it is worth it, like in a blanket statement for the purpose of getting lean and to just have exact measurements and know exactly what you're going into. Now, is it worth it long term? I can't answer that for this particular person because it depends on the client, right? So for some of my clients, we've gone into a weight loss phase without tracking. And it's
Mhm.
been based off of portions or like a hunger scale level. Um, and sometimes that provides more value than the getting lean. And so
Right.
my question follow up here would be, yes, we can track, but what is the importance of getting lean for the summer?
Mhm.
And why is it I read this as summer all of a sudden made this leanness want to happen?
Mhm.
So what were we doing leading up to that? And that doesn't really reflect that because also if you're not tracking and then all of a sudden you are, and we realize you're only eating 1,700 calories, then going into a leanness phase of cutting calories even more for the summer is not worth it. So no,
Right.
right. So
Right.
there needs to be more context, but I think let's put the ideal person, if we know what their maintenance is, they've been eating at it for the last, we'll say 6 months. They're
Mhm.
feeling great. They eat mostly whole foods. They've got a good plan. They're pretty consistent with planning ahead as well. Then yeah, tracking can be worth it.
Right. I'm taking this question as like from face value
Yeah.
of if I want to get leaner for an event. Now, again, summer, if we're talking about August, great. That makes more sense.
Uh-huh.
If I'm looking to get leaner for an event, the easiest way to get there is to track my calories,
Yeah.
right? And not only track it, but also plan it. Having something like a
Mhm.
MyFitnessPal is great to say, I already know what I'm eating for this week. That gives you, if you do that on Sunday, when I'm in a calorie deficit, I track at least up to Thursday. if not Friday. And I get my shopping done. I get my meal prep done based on that plan.
Yep.
So then come during the week when I'm stressed and I have decision fatigue, I can just say, I already know what I'm eating.
Right.
As a coach, it's wonderful because we are not having to like remind you to track yesterday. Oh, and also you're not tracking, some people think they're really good at tracking, so they'll do it after the fact.
Yeah.
That's a false confidence in your
Right.
ability to track. And again, this is for a short period of time. So like what you're saying is eventually we want to teach the hunger and fullness cues, but we also need to know what 3 ounces of chicken breast is,
Right.
because if we are having people track with having people eat and try to hit certain targets, protein being one of them, I truly believe that for most people, they need to go through a period of tracking just for education. It's
Agreed.
not, I'm tracking to like be obsessive. You didn't learn math until you learned math.
Right.
You don't learn what certain food groups. And you and I, at least I'll speak for myself. I thought I was so smart in my 20s and thought, oh, this is protein. No, babe, that was a fat. That's called cheese. That's a fat. That's called peanut butter, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's so many things that we assume are more of one thing and less of another. And then when we actually sit down and track, specifically in this case, macronutrients, we're like, oh, that is not a protein. The majority of the calories are coming from fat.
Right. Right.
I need to find higher protein items. So I just,
Right.
again, for this, for face value, if we're looking to get leaner, we're tracking. And what one thing we are not saying is that absolutely equals a deficit,
Right.
right? Because I've seen people track. I have a client that she stopped tracking for a while and she's like, okay, I need to get my shit together. She kept with the workouts. She stayed consistent with things. She's like,
Uh-huh.
okay, I just need to tighten it up in regards to what I'm eating. And we just started tracking again. And she instantly, like, she actually saw weight loss
Yeah.
because she was eating a bit more when she wasn't tracking and just tracking at maintenance. She saw weight loss. And that's great because then as we get closer to her goal, I believe she's turning 47 herself. And she's like, I just want to grade for my birthday. And I'm like, great, we can do that. Again, if we're mentally, physically, emotionally ready to do that, and we're not doing it as you've talked about for these like underlying, reasons that are distorted and a part of your self-limiting beliefs. For her, I just know she wants to look good. I know her well
Right.
enough at her 47th birthday. So then when we get closer to that goal, I'm going from maintenance to, maybe 100 or 200 calories under maintenance. And her body's
Right.
like, great, and it's awesome. She's like, I'm seeing results. I actually just did progress photos with her the other day and she looks great. So I think yes. What's up, guys? Quick interruption from our show sponsor, the Mindset of Matter Coaching, and an invite to you to our absolutely free webinar mastermind on rewiring your mind, breaking free from compulsive eating and overtraining. In this webinar, you will get access to me, Coach Christina Hathaway, licensed mental health therapist, certified personal trainer, and nutrition coach, to walk you through every single step of the mindset method. But more importantly, you get to share your story. You get to share your struggles, and I get to coach you during this mastermind. And so if this is something you're like, yes, I would love to be coached by Coach Christina, I want you to check out the show notes below for our registration. The webinar will be on May 16th at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and I would love as many people as possible to attend. If you do attend live, we also will be giving away a free gift. So it's always a plus for you to be there. Obviously, again, I get to see your face. So again, that's May 16th at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Now, back to elevating your mind. But again, do I have, even with tracking, just tracking, if I'm tracking at maintenance, do I have the mental energy to do this? I think that's always an important question.
Mm-hmm.
Or is this
Mm-hmm.
going to cause me to be more stressed out?
Yep.
So,
Ready for the next
cool.
one?
Yeah, do
Okay.
it.
How do you recognize your binge triggers?
Love this question. So, we've talked about binge eating and
Yep.
brain noise, or food noise, excuse me. And hopefully, maybe this is your first podcast you're listening to of us. The idea is when we are binge eating, we have been conditioned to use food as a way to soothe, to feel a sense of peace in our body, to, you know, calm ourselves down. And that comes from not learning how to meet specific needs, mainly emotional. So if we know that a binge is most likely a emotional need that's not being fulfilled, then what we need to do is understand the triggers to that, right?
Yes.
So the easiest way to do that is for my clients, they do conscious check-ins.
Hmm.
Conscious check-ins where in our app we remind them, check in, what am I thinking about? How do I feel uh emotionally and how do I feel physically? And just stopping and taking like, just gaining awareness, like what's going on in my environment. And you might think, well, how's that going to help me with triggers? Well, if I'm documenting that and then I end up in the pantry that evening, I've got some data to go back to, right? And say, oh, I was really hyper focused on that project and I was feeling a bit anxious and da, 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 right? So by being able to set conscious pauses in your day, and we're talking weeks of doing this, setting a reminder on your phone and just looking inward, you're going to get a vast amount of information that even if you end up in the pantry again, you have something to go back to say, okay, when stress is high at work, I'm most likely going to fall in a binge.
Yes.
When I have a fight with my husband or partner, I'm going to most likely fall into a binge. And then when we have that information and we anticipate it happening, we can create a different approach. As well as with that information, I'm anxious, I'm stressed, I feel unloved. That is the emotion that we need to fill without the food. And being able to then have that information helps us learn how to also meet the unmet need.
Yep. I would say for my clients, because I tend to not get clients who have like a clinical diagnosis of binge eating disorder.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to get the clients, and because that's more of Chris for the audience that's listening to this, that's Christina's specialty and or one of
Mm-hmm.
them. And so they need more professional guidance that I don't have the credentials for. So my clients who do tend to binge,
Well,
it's
look,
more,
can I
go
just
ahead.
cut you off real quick? I
Uh,
think it's what you're saying is really important because in media, we've used binge very lightly.
right. That's what I was
Like,
going to
can
go
we
into.
just fucking call it emotional eating? It's not binging,
Yes.
guys. I talked to you guys about this. Trigger warning, going to talk about what true binges look like. Sheets of cake,
Right.
like sh- whole cakes,
Yep.
not your two pieces of cake. So I just want to clarify there is a big difference of overindulging in emotional eating
Hmm.
and binge eating. So
Yes.
thank
So
you.
I'm more of the overindulging in emotional eating
Mhm.
support.
And most
And
women are.
yes, and that's why it's amazing how many of my clients have that tendency and weren't aware of it. And then they do the guilt shame spiral of it. And then they make up the calories the next day or exercise. But honestly, what usually happens, so recognizing the binge triggers, going back to the question. So, one, they recognize the shame and guilt they feel first, not necessarily the overindulgence or the emotional eating component. They're so
Mm.
focused on the shame and guilt and they should know better. So, one, that tells me, okay, there's something that we need to work on there. Then we
Hmm.
can start to deconstruct that and look at where did we feel the shame and guilt? Oh, it's around because I had that like 4 slices of apple pie and it was just, like I just had such a stressful day. There we go. And so we can look back. So, there's the option of consciously writing this out daily, but if it's for these random acts of emotional eating that are occurring, sometimes they tend to occur more frequently because it's not like stressor events just happen and then they go away, right?
Right.
It's like a stressor event continues for a bit. So then that emotional eating continues for a bit, then it's gone for a couple months.
Hmm.
So for my clients, what we're looking at is what happened throughout the day. So even like thinking of what's the backtrack? What led to this feeling? What are you feeling? Helping them identify the feeling, as you were saying. And I like to create space, and whether that's physical space, time space, environmental space for the client in the sense of when you're feeling the emotion. So this emotion is happening. You tend to eat the apple pie. I feel the shame and guilt. when we're starting to feel the shame and guilt and wanting to compensate for it,
Mm-hmm.
let's do something that serves you, whether that's like meditating, practicing your religion, going for a walk, or
Mm-hmm.
listening to like a podcast that you enjoy. Or I wouldn't even say a podcast that you enjoy because I don't want your brain to start thinking of something else and trying to suppress it. I want your brain to open up to that feeling and that thought and be able to
Mm-hmm.
work through it on your own. You're not going to be successful in the first time, but I think it's for
You're not going to be
me,
successful on the 20th time.
no, it's the reflection going back is how you
Right.
start to recognize the binge triggers.
Absolutely. And, you bring up a good point. Like, once you feel that shame and guilt, that is your aha.
Mm-hmm.
This is when I need to take care of myself,
Yes.
because going into restricting the next day is just feeding into the shame,
Right.
right?
Right.
So it's keeping a notebook, keep a notebook of when binges occur.
Mm-hmm.
Understand what was, just write down, even if it doesn't make sense, write down what happened around it, write down, what you felt after it. And the more information that you have, the better you're going to be at, decoding it and
Mm-hmm.
dissecting it and then preparing for it. Right. And that does take time. When we can prepare for it, know that I will tell you, we say this all the time, you will end up in the pantry again
Yes.
until we don't, right? It works once it works,
Right.
right? And it doesn't work until it works.
Right.
So, but it will work if you don't give up on yourself.
Right.
But just taking the information in, the method itself, know, name, notice, and nurture is a great place to start. We're actually I'm putting on a free webinar on this exact thing on May 16th at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we'll have a link to it. Yeah, we'll have a link. And I want a big ass webinar. I want this to be the biggest one yet.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're thinking, how do I do this? There'll be a link to that webinar, which also you can get our VIP experience for the webinar, which actually will help you start working on this now. So just a little plug for our webinar there.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, I think our main points are the reflection.
Yep.
So how do you,
Reflection.
yeah.
And doing it real quick, just we talked about this before, and the method itself is like doing it non-judgmentally. It's kind of like tracking your food. You're using it as knowledge and
Yes.
education.
Yeah. I tell my clients, like when they're in that judgmental space, like, how would you talk to your best friend right now? Cause
Mm-hmm.
like, I mean, we've all said like stuff to our best friend of like, okay, stop fucking dating this guy. He sucks. But before we got to that point, we've said like, okay, maybe this is happening. Why, like trying to work through it with them and
Mm-hmm.
you were always compassionate to them. So
Right.
now we need to take that personality trait that most people have and turn it towards ourselves. And that's some of the
Mm-hmm.
hardest thing to do is to recognize that you too deserve some self-compassion and to practice that as well when you're doing
Mm-hmm.
this.
Yeah. And I just told a client recently, I think I said this on the podcast. She said, I had a binge, I had a binge. And I said, okay. But the next thing she said to me was, however, I let it go
Uh-huh.
and I'm back to, my norms and I'm completing my norms and I didn't allow it to affect me moving forward.
Right.
If you can just start there, have the binge, accept the binge, and then we come back to what we call norms, right?
Uh-huh.
Which is our daily plan, the way that we eat, the way that we move, which for each of our clients is going to be different. But if we can come back to the norms, that's a huge step in itself.
Yes. That's one thing I do tell my clients as well is sometimes it's not the action, but it's what you do moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you can either decide to self-hate and self-sabotage and go into that guilt shame spiral and your old patterns, or we can decide to take a deep breath and like you did with this client or this client did for herself is what can I do? What are my bare minimums that I can do for this today? What are norms do I practice throughout the week? And that's how I'll move forward by focusing on those.
Right. Well, we're removing the shame aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, that happened. I expect it to happen. Eventually it'll stop. But for now, once it happens, I move on.
Yep.
Right. Awesome.
Yep. Okay. Last one. How to stop being scale obsessed.
Love this. I was on my walk earlier and I do voice notes to my clients on
Uh-huh.
Wednesdays. And I have actually the gal that I was talking about who's turning 47. She's seen amazing progress in her photos, but her weight's just kind of chilling at this new, I believe she's gone down to like 138 and she's around like 140.
Okay.
And I told her my own story. Like, as I've gotten older, my weight doesn't want to budge sometimes. And I'm not sure why. It could just be it's at a higher set point than it was before, or it's a part of my cycle. For those who don't know, I had a hysterectomy. I have my ovaries, so I still technically have a cycle, but I don't ever know when it is. And I'm trying to figure it out. I think I'm going to do your method and see if that helps.
Temperature.
Yeah. And it just doesn't budge sometimes. And if, you know, I was scale obsessed, I might give up. I might be like, well, why am I even doing this?
Hmm.
You know, the weight on the scale is a measure in that moment in time. That's it. And we talk about it's your bones, it's your water, it's your skeleton, or your bones, sorry. It's your muscle, it's your fat, it's your organs, right? It's so many things, but people just assume that this skin, all it's covering is fat, right?
I know.
It's not. And it takes a lot of calories over your total maintenance, TDEE, to gain a pound of actual fat overnight,
Yes.
about 3,500. However, we just believe, oh, the scale went up. So the first thing I would say is recognizing that the scale is like snapshot in time. And while yes, it's a piece of data, it's not our most accurate form of data.
Right.
What would you add?
I would add, if you're obsessed with the scale, just put it away
Right.
because there's so many other points of data like we're talking about. So like waist measurements, circumference measurements, how your pants are fitting, what, if others are noticing, how you feel, your sleep, how much your nutrition has improved
Your
in
strength in the
quality,
gym.
your strength in the gym. And I always tell my clients, like, so say, for example, all of those things are changing in a positive direction except the scale. So I'm like, okay, so we've got all these things and then we got one thing here. Are we going to change our whole direction based off of one thing?
Right.
Or are we going to look at all the positive things that have happened and continue with this path?
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't think of very many things that you would do and change your whole life course over because of one thing. I mean,
Right.
right, in blanket statement.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're obsessed with the scale, just put it away.
Yeah. Put it
Because
away.
yeah, continuing to get on it every morning as like a like okay, here I go. Like, and you're almost in battle with yourself because if it goes down, you've done well. If it goes
Mm-hmm.
up or stays the same, you haven't done well. And
Mm-hmm.
eventually, at some point, we don't want the scale to go up or down. So
Right.
that's the other part of this too, is like when women are like, okay, I want to get to like, we'll say 120 pounds. I'm like, that's pretty little,
Mm-hmm.
120 is relatively lean or very small. And at what point, like, are you going to get to a 119, 115? Because that
Mm-hmm.
scale's not always going to go down. If it
Right.
always went down, then we're going to weigh 85 pounds eventually. And that's a whole other issue
Yeah.
too. So
Now we're hospitalized.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Now we're in a very unsafe space.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something to consider of, okay, I have seldom to meet a woman who goes, I'm okay at 145, we'll say.
Mm-hmm.
There's always like this something about the number, like, yeah, I'm okay at 145, but I mean, I was 140 and I felt pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
And there's never a number that's satisfactory
Mm-hmm.
because there's always a comparison. Well, like in college, I was 120, and it's like, well, we're also different life phases too.
Right.
And so for me, scale, I like if clients are mentally okay with it to weigh themselves, I like that data because I like
Right.
data to look at the whole picture. And I think it can provide some positive feedback. For example, one of my clients recently, we were working on her nutrition. She was eating inconsistently, wasn't eating enough, and then the quality of food was pretty poor. She started eating 3 meals a day with a protein shake and an apple for her snack and ended up losing 12 pounds just
Wow.
by eating more. But it was good to be able to show her that data of like,
Right.
look, you've lost 12 pounds by eating more.
Right.
And she didn't change her workout. She wasn't even working out. She was doing a minimum of 3 days per week walking.
Wow.
So, yeah. So that I'm like, okay, that's great. Another client of mine who she's been at maintenance, hasn't lost any weight, but her body composition has changed
Oh yeah.
significantly.
Right.
So her struggle kept being like, I don't understand the scale. Like like my body looks great. I feel better. And I'm obviously like things are changing, but the scale hasn't gone down. That's frustrating. And it's like, at that point,
Hmm.
I don't really care about that data. Right.
Right. Well, and I tell
So
people all the time, like, how would this process change if the scale didn't exist?
yes,
That particular client would be like, this is the best. I am doing great. I
yes,
feel great. Like
right,
I look great.
right.
The feeling that they get or they don't get from this scale would, or I'll say this, the feeling they get from the scale when it goes down would be their constant feeling
Yes,
because the constant is, wow, you listed all of those means of progress. I'm seeing difference in my body. My clothes are fitting differently. I have more energy. I'm lifting heavier. That would be their constant. But this one fucking thing
I know.
dictates if they're good or bad. And at a certain point, you just have to say, no more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to do this to myself. Even my clients in larger bodies,
Yeah.
I say, no more. It was beautiful. I have a client, the scale's not moving, same thing, but her body comp changed. The this happened the right way. She's like, the scale's not moving. I'm getting frustrated. And then I didn't realize she added new photos
Uh-huh.
and I pulled them up and she was like, oh my gosh. When I pulled them up side by side, she was the one to
Yeah.
say, she said it cute. I'm not as chubby.
Yes.
And I was like, yeah, girl. And then she did new ones the next week.
Yeah.
Same thing. And
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, we need to get
Ditch
rid of
it.
it.
Well, and I
Ditch
think
the scale.
you and I can even attest to this. Like I've had to get rid of the scale for myself too, because it was honestly taking up too much energy to decide like, okay, if this happens, I'm going to feel like this way and I'm going to make sure I'm okay with the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
It was like I was trying to talk myself through every morning to ensure that I was okay with the outcome, whatever it would be. And it's like, I don't need to be doing this at 5 a.m. Like
Right. Well,
I'm
that's not the
tired.
first thought I need to
Yeah.
have.
Like, and my first thought is like trying to amp myself up to be okay with the outcome of a number. And it was like, I'm not even good at math. So that's never going to work out.
I'm gonna say something
Go
too. Well,
ahead.
go ahead. Well, I think it's funny too sometimes, and like this is totally, I know what people are gonna say when I say this. People will be like, oh, I'm just stuck at 138. And I'm like, girl, I'm 152.
I
Like,
know. That's not like,
excuse you.
I know. They'll be like,
But they're
oh,
like,
I
but
would
you're
just,
muscular. And
I
I'm like,
know.
exactly. So why don't
Yes.
we focus on that? If you're
Right.
okay with me weighing 152 and having the body that I have, why can't you fucking be okay with it in yourself?
Because they're different.
Yeah, you're not
But
special.
we're not.
You're
Okay.
special to us. But yeah,
Mm.
awesome. Is that
Anything else you want to
it?
cover? Yeah, those were the four.
Awesome. No, that was
Well, that
quick.
wasn't all the questions, but those were the four that we chose for this episode.
Yeah. So how do we get questions answered? I will be posting on my stories. We'll both post on our stories. You
Okay.
want to do it Sundays? Or
Mm,
no, because if we're going to record on Mondays, we should
let's
do
do
it
it Mondays
maybe.
because we can remember together on Mondays to post it.
Yes, good idea. So we'll post on our stories, on our Instagrams. Mine
Uh-huh.
again is Mindset of Matter Coaching.
And I'm fitbyamanda.az.
And then also, what we'll do is create a link below for a type form. How about we do that?
Oh,
For maybe people who aren't on social media.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah. So then we'll just have a type form that people can
We could
go in
post
and
it
add to it.
in our newsletters too.
Ah, we have newsletters.
Yeah.
Look at you.
Yeah.
So if you are interested also in signing up for our newsletter, which we send out weekly, we have a variety of different newsletters. A variety of different emails that go out. But once a month is our kind of chunky newsletter with everything that is the mindset of matter. And then you also get other like little sprinkles of goodness from us throughout the week as well.
Yep.
So I will also have Ira put a link for so basically below this, you're going to get a link to sign up for the webinar. Again, that's on May 16th at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The webinar is called Rewiring Your Mind, Breaking Free from the Habits of Compulsive Eating and Overtraining. We will link the new type form for our questionnaire.
Oh,
How did you get balloons?
I don't know, but sometimes if I do a thumbs up, it'll do it too. I don't know.
Sorry,
I don't
people are
know.
listening to this. Like, what are
I
they
know.
doing?
They have no idea. But
Well-
if you're one of my clients, you know I have no idea how that happened and I have no idea how to take it off.
Okay,
but
you
we
have to
just like
turn
leave
off
it.
gestures, reactions. Number 3, we are going to put in the newsletter if you want to subscribe to it. Awesome. Well, that's it. Again, if you want to follow us, we gave you that. We're also on YouTube where you'll find our beautiful faces at the Mindset of Matter YouTube page, as well as on TikTok. Other than that, I want you to remember one thing.
What you say in the mind.
You see in the mirror. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.